to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The undercard information for what is the Jack Culcay versus Bakram Murtazaliev IBF junior middleweight title fight, who's going to be fighting on that undercard. An unbeaten up-and-comer that goes by the name Cida. Bukvic
gave her a look.
Scheduled for 8 rounds in the women's bantamweight division, Cida is going to be taking on Italy's own Analisa Brozzi. Journeywoman with a record of 5 wins and 4 losses with no draws.
Developmental fight.
Developmental for Cida, who sports a professional record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, 28 years old, from Serbia.
Making her bones in the bantamweight division. Bantamweight, that's where Dina Thorsland reigns as that division's unified champion.
Japan's own Miyo Yoshida, she's got the IBF. And very soon, the United Kingdom's own Nina Hughes will be defending her WBA title. We'll have to see what happens with that if the title doesn't end up changing hands.
That's where Cida campaigns.
Cida Bukvic, who debuted as a professional way back there in December of 2018. She's fought 8 times since then. Last in action in October of last year, opposite the ring veteran journeywoman Angela Cannizaro, who she stopped in 3 rounds. Cida comes from a varied combat background. Kickboxing, boxing, does a bit of both.
The level of competition she's faced so far in 8 professional starts has been pedestrian level at best. A lot of journeywomen, a lot of girls with upside-down records, some that never actually won a fight.
Not saying there's anything wrong with that for a fighter that only has 8 professional bouts, but that is saying that she has yet to face the best and brightest fighters this division has to offer, and make no mistake, there are some bright young up-and-comers in the bantamweight division. It's one of the deeper divisions in the sport. Seems like her career got off to a fast start. She debuted in late 2018 and fought about 4 times in 2019. Only once in 2020, only once in 2021. Didn't fight at all, at least not as a boxer, in 2022.
Sat out all of 2022, only boxed once last year.
There's definitely something there, though. Some speed, some athleticism, some reflexes.
Countering ability.
She's quick. There's speed in those hands. There's speed in those legs. Though for a fighter who debuted all the way back there in 2018, you would have expected that she'd be further along by now.
She's good, but
you would have expected that she'd be further along by now. Saying that in the last 6 years, she's only fought 8 times.
Going on 9.
Needs to be busier. Needs to get busier. As stated, this is one of the deeper divisions in the sport where there are any number of unbeaten up-and-comers, talented ones, that she may have to go through in order to become a world champion herself. I get the distinct impression that she wants to be busier this year.
Getting off to an early start.
Boxing in the second quarter of it. Boxing on the undercard of Culcay versus Murtazaliev.
This is one to watch out for.
First look. We'll see how she progresses as the year progresses, and we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. Men's super lightweight news, I'm sure you've heard by now. The Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall rematch has been postponed again. Taylor suffered an injury that forced him to withdraw from the April 27th return bout versus Catterall in Leeds, England, sources told ESPN. Taylor versus Catterall II is expected to be rescheduled as soon as late May, and that's the story. It's postponed, but it's not postponed for very long, just a month over.
The tickets are still good.
But it's like the first fight all over again. You will remember that ahead of the first Jack Catterall fight, Josh Taylor suffered an injury, and this hurts public perception of the match. At the kickoff press conference, they really had a good thing going. Momentum for the fight.
For the rematch.
There's genuine bad blood there, and it's not about a belt or some belts. What it's really about is 2 guys who don't like each other, who want to settle it in the ring. And those fights sell well. This fight is proof of that because it's sold out.
In case you're not aware.
As soon as the tickets went on sale, it's sold out. So there is interest in the fight, but now that interest, that public perception, it takes a hit because it's a reminder of what happened the first time, that ahead of the first fight, Josh Taylor was coming off an injury.
It's a reminder that today's Josh Taylor is not the same Josh Taylor that won the Muhammad Ali Trophy in World Boxing Super Series.
That today's Josh Taylor is not the same guy that became an undisputed champion on the road right here in America on U.S. soil against Jose Ramirez. That today's Josh Taylor is a far cry from yesterday's Josh Taylor. He's fallen from grace, and he's fallen hard.
He's falling apart.
Why specifically?
Why?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of habits Josh Taylor has from one fight to the next. Does he have a drinking problem or something like that? I don't know that it's that he hasn't stayed at 140 too long. and as a result of that, his nutrition is suffering for it. That he outgrew this weight a long time ago, he should have moved up a long time ago, and continually making 140 pounds has made him brittle and injury-prone.
Malnourished.
If you ask him, he'll say that he's making the weight just fine, but is he? Is he when he's so often injured? Josh Taylor was always very big for a 140-pounder. Very generous physical dimensions for that weight, but after a while, when you're that big at that weight, it's going to get harder to get there, harder to get down to 140. So maybe that's what we're looking at, and that's why he's not as explosive as he used to be. His timing is off. The last 2 years of Josh Taylor, he's faded.
He's a faded version of his former self. We all know that he should have lost to Jack Catterall, and he definitely lost to Teofimo Lopez.
It's not who he used to be, and that's what we're reminded of ahead of this latest news, that granted that the postponement doesn't postpone the fight for very long, and thankfully the fight itself, it's not a pay-per-view, it's not a box office fight. You're getting this as part of your existing DAZN subscription.
So people are going to tune in.
But this is a reminder that Josh is not who he used to be. This is surely going to affect the betting line.
Jack might go in a slight favorite.
Just another postponement in the sport of boxing. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, apparently Chris Eubank Jr. is now a free agent. IFL TV understands that Chris Eubank Jr. is now a free agent. We revealed last week that talks had begun for him to face Terence Crawford at 160 pounds. Who do you think he should sign with?
That depends on what he wants to do.
He's been with Wasserman Boxing, Kale and Nisei Sarland up until this point. I wonder if his free agency in any way impedes the Terence Crawford fight, what's supposed to be the Terence Crawford fight. I don't really imagine it does unless it was happening on Wasserman's dime.
Unless they were the ones paying for it. I don't get the sense that they were, though.
Boxing insider Rick Glacier says Chris Eubank Jr. is now officially a promotional free agent. Crawford versus Eubank at 160 is in the works. A fight that I don't mind because I feel like it services as a segue to a potential Canelo Alvarez fight. Why else would he move up in weight to 160 for that guy?
Now, Chris Eubank Jr. is a free agent. Terence Crawford is a free agent. And after Canelo Alvarez is done with Jaime Munguia, he's going to be a free agent too.
So who's to say that Crawford don't meet Canelo in Saudi on the Saudis' dime?
Mayweather, like I say, Mayweather want to put the fight up, put the money up then.
Yeah.
Put the money up.
Yeah.
Stop telling what other people should do and put the money up. And then again, like they said too, come on, brother. You didn't fight to Paul Williams. You didn't fight Margarito.
That is Bernie the Boxer, a close friend and confidant of Terence Crawford's, addressing some recent suggestions that Floyd Mayweather made.
Spoke to Mill City Boxing recently to get it off his chest.
I think they wanted to give you $8 million or something before or whatever it was. You didn't fight Margarito. I mean, like I say, you might have been big. You might have been super huge.
Floyd made the recommendation that Terence Crawford should fight Jaron Boots Ennis, or that he should move up to 168 and take on David Benavidez. And to that, Bernie the Boxer had to say this.
But you thought you was too big for your britches to fight Margarito. So then shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
I agree with Bernie. For urging Terence Crawford to move all the way up to 168 for David, you didn't move all the way up to 160 for Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah, but Terence does say he wants to fight Canelo at 168.
Yeah, Canelo at 168. When Canelo eats, David don't shit.
If that's, shut the fuck up. Or you gonna put the money up, then shut the fuck up.
It's not a bad recommendation, to be honest. Floyd Mayweather said that he's making approximately $300 million a month based on quote-unquote investments. Well, if you're making that kind of money in a month...
Here's a perspective.
Top Rank's annual budget for the year is in the neighborhood of between $80 to $100 million. That allows them to do fights throughout the entire calendar year. Just $100 million. Floyd says he's making more than that in a month.
Do you understand?
So, and to fight Benavidez was preposterous. To say the fight Benavidez was and for Mayweather to, like I'm saying, for Mayweather to be with a guy that's supposed to have love for Bud.
Floyd Mayweather doesn't have any love for Terence Bud Crawford. He doesn't have any love for anybody but himself. He's egotistical, self-serving.
He can be that way.
I'm not telling him that he has to go frolicking in the forest naked with all his friends singing Kumbaya. I'm just saying that when he makes suggestions, he doesn't have the fighter's best interests in mind. He has his own.
But hey, if you like those fights so much, you put the money up. You pay for them. Money, Mayweather.
And to hang with Bud, and you see all this shit, that shit never came out his fucking mouth. He should have been advocating for the Canelo fight. That's what he should have been doing. advocating for the Canelo fight. But did he do that? No.
For Floyd Mayweather to say that he's making $300 million a month from investments, smart investments, quote unquote, well, that's more than Top Rank gets to make shows throughout the entire calendar year.
You're saying that what they get for the year, you make more than that in 1 month. So you can pay for the fight.
You want him to fight Boots?
You can pay for it.
You're the one with all the bright ideas.
You can pay for it.
He trying to, that's what I'm saying?
He
Now
actually
you
advocated on how he was moving, to be honest.
You said what now?
He was advocating on how he was moving, like giving him props on how he was moving.
So who was?
Mayweather in that same interview that you're speaking upon.
He said that he was giving Crawford good, he was talking good on him?
Talking good on Canelo on how he was moving, that he kind of like, you know, he learned from Mayweather basically.
Okay. So now Bud can't learn?
The suggestions that Floyd Mayweather made for Terence Crawford, those recommendations are recommendations that he himself would not act upon. Those recommendations are not recommendations that he would make for his own fighters.
When Floyd makes those recommendations, he doesn't have Terence Crawford's best interests in mind. That's not what that is.
What that is Floyd Mayweather's methodology of shading a fighter that perhaps doesn't want to play ball, doesn't want to play by their rules, and doesn't want to stay under their thumb. His and Al Heyman's.
He's catty.
He's always been that way. What? Because Floyd said something, because he said this or he said that. People are supposed to sit around sucking his fucking dick because he made some money in his career?
Fuck off.
People don't like you that much. They don't respect you that much. And the Mayweather era is over.
It's done.
Floyd was always too egotistical to assume the role of the wise old sage imparting wisdom onto the next generation of youngsters and the next generation of fighters. He's not that guy, and he's never been that guy.
That's not what he's doing.
Even if he's officially retired from the sport of pro boxing, he is just as self-serving and selfish now as he was when he was active. So when he says something, it's not to the benefit of the fighter, it's of the benefit to himself in some way, shape, or form.
Crawford's branching out. He's doing his own thing. He seems to be done with the PBC.
And he doesn't have to bow to you. He doesn't have to bow to Floyd. He doesn't have to bow to Al.
Play your game.
You're the reason the fight took so long to make. The fight with Spence. He don't owe you nothing.
You're the ones that froze him out.
The days of people kissing Floyd's ass and acting like everything he says is gospel, yeah, those days are over.
Go buy yourself some more ugly shoes.
Go count your money. Go do whatever it is you do in your downtime. People are sick of seeing you.
Go away.
Finally, in men's heavyweight news, on the heels of his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou has insisted that he is not done with boxing despite his KO defeat to Anthony Joshua, but he did mention that his next fight could be with the PFL in mixed martial arts versus Renan Ferreira.
That was the story ahead of the fight. Ahead of the Joshua fight and after the fight, it's the same deal.
He was said to have inked a contract with the people at the PFL upon his departure from Dana White's UFC. Boxing, endeavoring into the world of boxing, seems to have been a pit stop for him, albeit a very lucrative pit stop.
Still just a pit stop. It looked like he was always going to go back to the octagon.
Though despite losing to Anthony Joshua, he says that he's open to facing another boxing great, quote-unquote great, Deontay Wilder. They're both coming off of losses, him and Wilder. Wilder's coming off the loss to Joseph Parker. Francis Ngannou's coming off the knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. 2 back-to-back losses.
Would there be any interest in putting him in the ring with Wilder? Is that a fight that people would want to see?
I think there was a time and a place for that fight. I think the right time and the right place for that fight would have been immediately after Wilder's knockout win of Robert Helenius, but here and now, public perception of Wilder is that his career is almost over, all but over.
He looked horrible with Joseph Parker.
So I don't know what kind of reception Wilder versus Ngannou would receive. Francis Ngannou, who revealed on his Instagram that he was quote-unquote falling asleep as he warmed up in the changing rooms ahead of his fight with Anthony Joshua.
Oh, he's a real boxer now.
Because what's a boxing match and what's a knockout loss without a guy making excuses afterwards? Francis is fitting in. He's fitting in nicely. He's right at home.
Listen.
When you say something, there's a purpose behind it. If you're gonna go as far as saying something like you were falling asleep in the changing rooms,
right?
Waiting to make your ring walk.
What's the point in you saying that? What's the purpose? You're communicating that to your audience to communicate what? What exactly? That you went into the fight drowsy?
Is that why you lost the fight? Because you were sleepy.
Do you want some snuggles?
Well, listen, if he was sleepy going into the fight, Anthony Joshua did a good job of tucking him in and putting him out.
You was sleepy going in? Well, he put you to sleep.
My thoughts. After a violent knockout loss like that, a violent knockout, can sometimes have a way of recalibrating a fighter's perspective. And some fighters, when they're knocked out the way that Francis was knocked out, they're never the same after that. Their punch resistance,
Never the same.
this could transcend from the boxing ring into the octagon, because it's my understanding that Francis Ngannou, he had never been knocked out before.
It could carry over.
From the boxing ring into the octagon, because it's my understanding that he'd never been knocked out before, he'd never even been knocked down before, he'd never even been buzzed in the octagon the way he was rocked and stopped in the boxing ring.
It can change you.
But he says he wants to keep boxing. He's open to a fight with Deontay Wilder. When it comes to Deontay Wilder, I don't even know what to say.
I don't.
So let's say that Francis, he's not going to leave boxing. He's going to keep boxing. Who would be the ideal opponent for him? And I think the winner of the upcoming Pulev versus Manuel Charr fight for what is the WBA Reggie belt, the WBA regular title that for whatever reason is still in circulation. I think the winner of that fight would be an ideal opponent for Francis Ngannou. You've been knocked out, you've been stopped. So
Violently.
those two guys are in your same age group. Those two guys, they're in their late 30s. You're in your late 30s. If you can't make it past the winner of that fight, if you can't beat that guy, whoever that guy ends up being, and I think that guy's going to end up being Kubrat Pulev, I think he's going to win. If you can't make it past the Kubrat Pulev, then you shouldn't be boxing.
Don't you think that's a bit harsh? People think he beat Fury.
And he did well against Fury. But maybe it's because Fury's not what people think he is, and maybe it's because Tyson Fury's overrated. He's been overrated for a very long time, and you can't read too much into that, because if you're gonna make it in the sport of boxing, you need to be able to beat
Pulev.
Kubrat Pulev.
If you can't make it past the Kubrat Pulev, I don't know what to tell you.
What about him saying he was sleepy in the dressing room?
Anthony Joshua had to wait to make his ring walk the same way that you had to wait to make your ring walk. So that's really no excuse. You were both subject to the same circumstances.
You got a little bit sleepy and needed your blankie.
That's no fucking excuse.
Fuck off.
What the hell am I supposed to say? What the hell am I supposed to do with that kind of an explanation? You and your opponent were subject to the same circumstances. If you got beat, the real reason is you don't belong in the same ring with that guy, and that's what he proved.
That's what I thought before the fight. That's what happened in the fight.
Very simple. You bit off more than you could chew with this guy.
You got knocked out.